Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
We will get started in a few moments. You could mark your attendance, and if you have any items you'd like to discuss today or any diagrams to share, please do so. I'm going to rush over and feed my cat before he gnaws my leg off. I'll be right back and we'll get rolling. All right, everybody. It is several minutes after the hour. Welcome to the December 1st edition of the Diagrammer Society. Do we have anyone that is new that would like to share a little introduction? As always, if I could ask the group to please assist in taking notes today, that would be super useful. We have two items to talk about today. We have Matt has, I believe, finished his homework. He was developing a mind map diagram to share with us. We looked at last time. Hopefully we'll see some more stuff today. And then I would like to talk about the SIG charter. Any other items we'd like to talk about today? All right, Matt, take it away, sir. Show us your mind mapped out.
That would be scary. So, I mean, I posted in the Slack channel for everybody. So I open an issue. I link the mind map that's in my GitHub drive. So hopefully you should be able to get it yourself. And also in the issue, pointed to the App Store where you can get the XMind application if you care to manipulate it yourself directly, etc. But let me share here. I don't have my usual multi-screen setup, so you'll see some clutter. Apologies. So my homework was, I had 3 more work groups to take a look at. So let me zoom in on those work groups. All right. So the first work group that I had to finish mapping out was the identifying security threats work group, and identified 3 code projects, as well as Alpha Omega being discussed, or hopefully reporting back to that work group. Again, I've carried over my, if there were clear tags, if I went into the actual group's meeting notes and they said, we are working on this part of the mobilization plan with this tool or whatever, I included that reference or tag as well. But I think, like I said, the next step, as I said the previous week, would be for us to get a subgroup of this team together, maybe go through all of the work products and work groups, and have a discussion of does this, how do we classify the work being done relative to the mobilization plan, and or perhaps a taxonomy like DevOps lifecycle, like I created down here. So the taxonomies are kind of nested below the breadth of the mind map. That's more of like an organizational structure. but the tags I was trying to work towards were these tags initially. And again, there could be other tagging systems we can add along the way. But again, this is to get an inventory, as our already seeing, as we commented last week, there's a lot of things in red that are basically things that in my mind, need to be fixed because the relationship or governance is unclear, that there are referenced work products that are not well known or watched after, if you will, that needs some type of correction. So red and orange needs some kind of fix. And I think that David chimed up last week that, we'd be looking at especially, salsa, et cetera. And I think that it's actually kind of ironic because as a tree view, you can actually see kind of where things are out of balance. And I think that, once we start extracting the tags and seeing where the Venn diagrams are, the weighted Venn diagrams are, that we'll see a lot of non-coverage of the mobilization plan, if you will. So a lot of things come out of it. So the securing core project is I also have some ad hoc relationships and notes and things I've taken as well. For example, there's some tags, there's a lot of claim tags, as you can see there in their notes. They claim, this is actually David's suggestion from the 519 meeting, was that he believed that this group was working on things from stream 2, 5, and 7, but I left it there for us to validate those claims or whatever, because the group did not necessarily endorse that. David just made that comment. It was recorded in the meeting notes. Then the vulnerability disclosure was the next to last work group I looked at. The OS cert SIG. I had this, basically it looks like the work group itself. The README probably needs to be updated to acknowledge the OS cert SIG and also and acknowledge the sub teams below it potentially, and give linkage to those activities, etc. That's why that's in red text. In terms of the projects, I have a lot of projects that I know I've seen in the meeting notes that I'm not sure what their status is. The unified list, and again, I'm well aware Crobe is you're one of the leaders of the group, so
Right.
not a criticism at all.
Nope, not all.
Okay, but
well, what a interesting side effect of this, it showcases the need to have consistent paperwork, regardless of how all this stuff gets organized. There's a substantial amount of administrivia that needs done to be able to help inform exercises like this.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because the last work group is actually kind of funny to me. So I'll get to that in a second. But to close the vulnerability disclosure work group out, I found a lot of proposals that were interesting as issues. They're in the notes, they were called PRs, but they're actually issues in the GitHub. So I mean, again, it goes back to, and depending on what week you show up at the work group, they might not have been discussed in the last meeting. They might have been discussed 2 meetings ago. So, how do we track these things more consistently and, from a structural, process point of view, type of thing. But the end user group I was referring to is actually kind of amusing because they've been established for some time now, yet their README is still just the template. And what's worse is the only thing that they've changed the template, they linked to meeting notes that from July. And so this is I made, these are the things I read above, basically. So let me zoom in a little bit here if you want to read along. So basically the README links to the meeting notes, which are not the meeting notes. The meeting notes are someplace else. They reference issues and things from tag security they reference CNC work products and work issues that have no presence in OpenSSF. I don't know where to find them. Anyways, I found the meeting. I just noted I found the meeting notes only by going to the Slack channel, to be honest with you, because I've not attended the end user work group yet. Ironically, they have 3 proposed projects. They plan to work on architectures and submit that back to the TAC. They have a taxonomy of attacks of attacks. They just call it the taxonomy. It doesn't really have a formal name, I guess. And the supply chain initiative, there's another proposal. All the links, again, if you get the mind map, all these links will actually link you to the actual documents themselves, the actual proposals or guides or whatever they may be, or the code will bring to link to the repos. There's also they have a list, which is interesting because this list is actually kind of interesting. Let me just bring it up. So it looks like they created a spreadsheet to try and figure out what are the work groups actually doing that the end user work group might be interested in. So it's kind of a nice way to close out this mind map is that the need for some type of clarity around the organizational structure and the work products is clearly just needed, and the end user work group can't track effectively, so they created their own list, if you will. Anyway, kind of amusing. But the end user work group, ironically, is the least accessible in terms of what and the most opaque as to what they're working on, I found, and I had to dig quite a bit to find out these things and go pouring back maybe weeks in the meeting notes because there was no consistent review of these work products, if you will. They're kind of like proposed, somebody uploaded something, then they were dropped for weeks and there was no mention of them. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. So that's about it. That's why I finished it. I closed out. I may have added a few tags on some of these work groups, but I uploaded it. Again, it's an invitation for us to take this and go, to the next step and try and get rid of all the red and orange areas and then prioritize what things need to be driven from the TAC perspective, perhaps. That's it.
Thank you for doing this, Matt. It's very interesting. One quick question. My proprietary closed source operating system does not have an app store. Could you potentially export that as some kind of image file just so I could take a peek at it?
Yeah, I think I can export to an image file. I'll do that. Let me do that immediately following the call.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
And I'll link it to the issue as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll put the PNG that will attach. Well, the XMI is not recognized by GitHub, so I couldn't attach it as noted. So
yeah, I know those tools are really cool, but I haven't bought one, and no app store.
Yeah, I know. I was afraid of that.
Unsurprisingly, certain vendors were not allowed to use their equipment at my corporation.
Hi guys, I actually had a problem installing this app. Somehow the file I have is corrupted or something. I don't know. I have to try to download again, but yeah, it was weird because I got this DMG file and then it started the installation and it eventually fails with some error. I was like, what? I haven't had time to dig into it, but that was enough to distract me and get me off the rail.
So apparently I can as SVG export, but I have to subscribe and pay like $30 to get SVG.
No.
Oh
Yeah, so again, this is something I was asked to use because of work being done at
no.
So I'm not endorsing it, necessarily, but
I like how it lays things out and how it's linkable. It's just unfortunate, I don't have an ability to look at it right now. Jay, you had a question or comment?
Yeah. First of all, Matt, man, that what you did there is phenomenal. It lines everything out so smooth that I can sit here and say it would. We could literally take each one of these because I saw a few. I'll say discrepancies, but I think it's just for I think Krub hit the nail on the head. What this does is it forces us to take a look at each one of these and kind of, because of the lack of documentation or because of the lack of rigor around the governance of some of these things, we really don't, to know where things are actually sitting, what their actual classification is. For instance, Alpha Omega, I believe, is no longer, if it was before, I'm not sure, but it's no longer a project under the Identifying Security Threats Working Through. I think that project sits aside, even the OpenSSF at this point.
Exactly, but I think there's still claims that it owns it or has some governance over it.
Well, no. The only same about them is that the one of the Michael Scovetta, who's partnered with Michael Windsor for Alpha Omega. Just happens that Michael Scoville just happens to be the chair of the Identifying Security Threats Working Group. But that is kind of like at this point it's coincidental.
Yep.
If anything else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But things like that need to be properly identified, because maybe at one time that was the case.
Yeah.
I think what might work is if we took each one of these, right? And I don't mind doing that, right? Take and go one by one, doing a scrub, right? Just a hard scrub, because I think what you have here is great. And I think it gives us the opportunity to actually do that, a one by one scrub. Go into the working group and actually say, hey, working group chairs, this is what we're looking at, right? Talk to them directly. This is what we're looking at. Is this correct? And if it's correct, where's your paperwork that says so? I shrug.
Well, and for example, I think John Meadows is taking up the leadership of the end user group, and he's newish to the foundation, and I imagine that they didn't onboard that working group terribly effectively.
Right.
So he might not know that these are some of the expectations. So I think we can definitely, as Jay mentioned, approach these different teams and start to get this corrected. So we're all in. So we have that consistency, and which is absolutely part of our goals here, is to try to help explain what the heck's going on here. What is all the things we're doing here as collectively the OpenSSF?
Yeah,
I agree with you, Crab. I think my experience has been exactly like this. It's really more accidental. It's not like anybody has, the wheel of being outlawed or something
Mhm.
like this. Like it's not because they're trying to play outside of the rules. They just don't know the rules or
Right.
what the expectations are. And if we help them, typically my experience is they're very happy. We help them get things straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned in my years here at the OpenSSF is that no one wants to do paperwork.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think that they got stood up as a working group. So, I mean, to know procedurally, right, verbally to know, hey, this is the steps you need to take. That's one thing. After the fact, though, you get started, you get moving, and things, and because you're moving fast, you may forget to dot the I's and cross the T's. It's happened to a whole bunch of working groups. Hell, there were a couple of them that I just jumped in and started doing stuff. Like I was like, yeah, we gotta get this fixed. So one hand washes the other at this point. So like that's why I wrote the comment. If I saw it next week before the end of the year, we'll get them right. But paperwork is paperwork. I don't mind doing it at this time of the year. I don't mind at all at this time of the year.
I would go as far as to say, if I would have, now that I have this, I would be happy to go work with somebody to go to each of the work groups and say, let's update your README. let's put these, let's fix some of your meeting notes and make sure your calendar entry is correct and do some of these things.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I try to attend as many of the working group meetings as possible anyway. If for nothing else, just to be in the meeting. Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's something as easy as potentially showing up and requesting it. Some teams might respond well to an issue or a PR. So
yeah, I thought about mentioning it on the Fresca call yesterday morning, saying, "Hey guys, you got these problems. We need to, because they're talking about taking it to the next level in terms of attestations and things." And I was thinking, like, what we need to get the base. You guys have 5 people at your call, and you're not growing because people can't find you. They don't know what you're working on, and you're, So
Well, Fresca is a whole different thing, right? Is Fresca even a SIG?
It's a project under supply chain integrity work. It's a project under there, and it's like I told people in my company, it's like, It's as you noted, Jay, it's due to a certain individual like Mike Lieberman. We have and Michael Scavetta. We have this we happen to have this cross pollination that binds us together, but it's a weak binding.
Mhm.
It needs.
Well, I guess what I mean by that in terms, so look, being, I'll say still being relatively new, but the great part about that is having to go through procedural things and processes and procedural items around the newness. And the reason why I say it's about Fresca is because I don't like, you say they're a project, right? Well, you have SIGs and you have projects. My understanding, projects are code centric.
Yes, yeah.
I
They-
don't believe Fresca's writing code.
Yeah, the TAC changed some of the definitions slightly, and it's going to change again because Alpha and Omega, for example, used to be a SIF, a special funding initiative, but now it's going to be called an associate project. So there'll be some further slight adjustments.
But I don't, and about Fresca, I know that well, under the supply chain integrity working group, but I don't remember that I having attended those meetings, I don't remember that getting voted on and then made into an actual SIG.
You describe a large number of projects that, so.
Well, and I don't think the TAC in my groups, we've talked about it, but I don't know that everyone took the change and distributed that information to the working group, saying that there's some changes in classifications. We have a new graduation model from incubating to mainline to graduated. So we have a whole kind of life cycle now. And I don't think that information was properly evangelized out to the working groups.
Well, it goes back to the authority. Some groups believe that all the authorities at the working group, and their 10-minute presentation every few months to the TAC is sufficient. Yeah. And so I still see comments in a lot of meeting notes saying like, oh, there's literally things in the salsa positioning group where it's saying, we should have this blog reviewed by the TAC. That means by lazy consensus, at least notify the TAC this blog's gonna be posted so people can know to read it, and can say, stop the presses if there's something blatantly wrong, right? That's the goal. And yet that was brought up by Melba in a meeting, in the meeting notes, and somebody actually said, no, we don't know anything to the TAC. We can publish, we're our own working group. We have the authority here.
Yeah, that's not that I can tell you that's not that you do need to get the TAC to at least review it. Especially since it's going out under a SIG underneath the OpenSSF.
Yeah.
You need the TAC to review it so the TAC can at least have their say on, hey, maybe word it this way or word it that way. It is a cursory look, but at least it gives the TAC an opportunity to opine on anything blog related about something technical coming out of the OpenSSF. But I think when we go back and talk about all of these items, if in anything else, it's not to say, hey, slap on the wrist, you can't do it. It's to say, hey, that's fine. Let's make it right, according to whatever new processes, new procedures, new classifications, etc. We get everybody. This is a great opportunity to get everyone finally on the same sheet of music.
But Fresca is a great example because to me, that's the most important project because they're putting all the pieces together and that they're going to map to salsa and do all these things, right? But that's all under Mike Lieberman. But the best information about Fresca, none of it's found under OpenSSF branding. It's all from Parth Patel or from Mike Lieberman or at conferences, given at conferences that maybe not even part of the OpenSSF data at an open source. So I mean, we need to encourage these groups to publish under the OpenSSF banner so people come to us for the source information.
So what you just described right there, right? If that's the case, but they're reporting in as project /SIG /whatever status underneath a OpenSSF working group, that's a problem. And that means that the TAC doesn't have visibility or governance over what its working group is doing regarding the ebb and flow of projects and SIGs or whatever it is coming through,
Yeah,
getting
but
help, getting development, etc.
the problem is more gray than that, Jay, because it's not exactly like there isn't a SIG, there is a SIG. I actually attend some of their meetings. You can attend the the SIG, the Fresca meetings, but as Matt says, the way they are going at putting together Fresca is made of bits and pieces that come from all over the place, and it's not very clear where, where's the ultimate source, if you will, for, okay, so what does it mean to actually implement Fresca?
Well, yeah, it's about endorsement. So I know that,
Yeah.
they're integrating technologies, Spiffy and Spire is integrated now. So basically we need an understanding that if we create a reference implementation or even any implementation that people can use, that we're bringing in, componentry now, the recent thing they're committing to, it's already on their own README, but they're formally committing to QUE as the means to shift left the dynamic variables and extra schema validation for the YAML files used to configure Fresca. So, we need to be aware of these technologies. I know Michael Scovetta, does a great job, in terms of Alpha Omega at documenting the tool chain and the expectations and worrying about that, like especially like use of code QL, like that. But this group is just strictly trying to get it working and add all these security things without regard to bringing in other technologies and having a larger discussion about bringing them in. Right?
And by the way, on the issue of the blog post review, I'm sorry to tell you guys that this issue was never completely resolved by the TAC. I actually have done some investigation because I wanted to know the exact status. A while ago, I looked into it. And if you look in the TAC minutes, there's one day when it was specifically discussed, but there was, opinion of the TAC members was asked. And the people present actually were in favor of having the TAC be notified, but there was no quorum, so there was no official resolution.
I didn't
And
know
that's
that.
where
I
it's
did not know
been
that.
left.
I assumed that somebody would create a Slack channel where people would post lazy consensus notifications, but so you're telling me it never got voted on and approved.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in fact, in parallel to that, the process we put in place specifically, list the ability to publish on a blog as one of the benefits of being a working group under the, in OpenSSF. So, I can see why people might feel like, hey, they're totally entitled to post whatever they want.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, Jennifer Bly, right? When we were getting ready to do the blog for S2C2F, as part of her process, it was, before we finish this, let's give the TAC a day or two to review. And that's how the blog went to the private TAC email for review. That was Jennifer Bly that said that.
I was wondering about that because it went live the 16th. I was like, did this get reviewed? Because it wasn't at a TAC meeting. So it went to the private email. So that
it went to the private email.
Yeah,
that was at the behest of Jennifer Bly, who said, as part of the process, that needs to happen.
Yeah, because so Jennifer is smart, she knows better. So she did the right thing, even if it's not specifically written. And it was because it was also published on the main OpenSSF blog.
Yes.
But there are other blogs, right? Like
Okay.
Salsa has its own blog.
Salsa has its own
which
blog.
Doesn't get so then it's not so clear. Well, then the Salsa steering committee just decides, yeah, it's okay, let's publish it.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. There's a gray area here. You're right.
Yes.
For the blogs, that is a very solvable problem. We can create an issue in the tax repo and force the public conversation and debate and voting through that issue. So that's something that we can definitely get some resolution on.
Yeah.
But this is all open source, and there are a lot of very strong opinions, and it will just take some time to persuade everyone of a consistent approach.
It's just about, it's just a courtesy, it's just an awareness.
Sure,
doesn't
no.
it?
I agree. You know, I have been blindsided by many of the early blogs and was surprised. It would have been nice to have a heads up as a TAC representative. I would have liked to have known, so I could have, provided feedback or at least given my organization a heads up. Hey, this is
Well, I
coming.
mean, it's kind of funny because I have an open source project that we're donating to OWASP Foundation. And so, basically we're actually going to work with a director at OWASP Foundation, and he's going to notify, there's a notification process. So they're going to notify the intent to produce a blog announcement. And then that just gets, corporate membership to say, to let them know this tool's coming out and that they've used it or tried it. That they can comment on, provide a quote or whatever. It's just nice to have that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
We are a very immature organization in regards of having thought through all of these important things. But this is, again, with the blogs in particular, we can open up an issue with the TAC and get them to have that conversation and come to a decision.
I agree, but
So when do we want to roll up our sleeves and go branch by branch?
That moves me to my next item. I had presented our petition to the TAC to become adopted as a SIG directly underneath them, and they were in general in agreement with that proposal, but they require us to have our charter finished and have all of our paperwork done. So somebody's actually kind of holding us accountable, which is awesome. So I would love for everyone to take a look at the charter very quickly if you can. And potentially we might be able to get consensus on being able to adopt it. And that will let us move forward. And what that will allow us to do is to start to carve off time as we've identified this list of problems with Matt's diagram and the other conversations we've had. We can go to the TAC saying, we found these problems. How would we like to address these going forward? Just gives us a little more ability to execute. So the charter, I updated the other day with some names and whatnot. But this is essentially boilerplate from the foundation. There's several things you need to fill out. So this should look very similar to anyone that's looked at any of the OpenSSF working group or SIG or project charters. So does anyone have any strong feelings about changes that need made, or do we want to come back in 2 weeks and formally vote? I can create an issue and everyone can kind of express themselves there if we want.
I mean, unless there needs to be anything specific put in this charter related to it looks the same as every other charter. I mean,
Right.
There's no, unless there's something special that needs to be put here just because the nature of what we're doing directly underneath the TAC, right? I mean, I think this is fine.
Yeah, and that you're exactly right, Jay. This is exactly the same. And if we need to make it different, we can. But I don't see a need at this time personally. But the group.
I think the generalized wording gives us great latitude in terms of technical initiatives and think to do other things, derivative work. So I'm happy to give my thumbs up vote today, if need be.
I mean, what
well,
go ahead, Anna.
no, it's okay. I mean, I have a comment, but it's all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say what I mean, there's 5 of us here. What constitutes that? Do we need a quorum of some sort? Or, I mean, we give a thumbs up and let's keep it moving. I mean, if there's If there needs to be a change later on, we could vote on that.
The only repeat participants that aren't here today are Ava, David, and Randall. Everybody else, the four of us have been here pretty much from the beginning. So that would be kind of the model of how I'm using with my other working groups, is that the we track attendance, and those people that show up earn the right to be contributors and voters. And I would consider the four of us that have been here the whole time. That's that it would be three additional people I'd like to consider their opinions: David, Ava, and Randall, since they've also been here very consistently.
Okay.
But if the four of us agree, that's a very strong case.
Yeah, whatever mechanism, if you want to set up a voting mechanism now and just give it a closure date to allow everybody that you mentioned to.
I will do that. I will create an issue. I will send that issue to the mailing list and the Slack channel. And let's say, what's today, Thursday? Let's give it until, if I could have everyone express their opinion by like next Tuesday, that'll be great.
So allow me to interject, because I
Please.
wanted to point out something that's actually very much on point here, is that I think we need to list the initial maintainers that would become part of the steering committee.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that will be another administrative task that I will bear.
Bless you. Bless you.
Yeah. I have a giant
No,
spreadsheet
because,
where I
right,
track all my working group participation.
Because the charter is pretty well written that way, that it also provides for the bootstrapping, which is often an issue, right? It's like, well, you've got to start somewhere. And so there's a way to get to the TSC, but you can start with nothing. And so I think this is an important aspect we have to have.
Yeah, if you, how I would document that, if you take a look at the vulnerability disclosures working group and scroll down to the governance section, is how this would get listed.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And again, I personally keep track of all the groups that I participate in, that everyone that comes, so that I have so I have the ability to understand who shows up and who is just kind of occasionally passively showing up. All right, so I will make the issue. I will get the contributors listed. Anything else on this task we think we need to be able to move forward there?
No, this looks good. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks again.
You're welcome. And thank you for the diagram. Do we have any other topics we would like to discuss today?
Well, we've got Rosaria. Maybe we can give her a chance to introduce herself. And I don't know if she got the right picture of what this is supposed to be. I think we're a bit of an odd group in that way. Some groups are more structured than this, but this is a pretty small group, and so we allow ourselves to, wander around a little bit.
No, it's totally fine. Hi, everybody. I'm Rosaria. This is the first time I've joined this group, so thanks for letting me join. I work at Indeed, and I am very new to open source. I joined the open source program office, and I'm starting to plot my way here. And I was asking some questions to see Rob here directly. So just to ask what the group was doing, and I think I summarized it pretty accurately. I think this is great. I did give some feedback that as a newcomer here to this wonderful world of open source, it hasn't been easy to understand the strategy and understand what the priorities are and what group is working on what. And I also get the sense that there are some overlap, but everybody's working really hard to work toward more of a secure environment. So I think the initiative of this team is awesome, and I think it's needed.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, if you're really new to open source in general, I will tell you that OpenSSF is a bit of an oddball in that way. It's I will dare say, since we're the small community, especially, that it's more of a mess than a typical organization is. And this has to do with the fact that this organization was not funded initially. And so
Yeah.
it grew organically for a year before, companies like hers decided to really take this seriously and put a bit of structure around it. And so now we're trying to, set a structure around something that's already in flight, which is a lot harder.
Right. But it's also very common. It's very common that things like this start out this way. And,
Yeah.
the best ideas start out in somebody's garage on a piece of paper, right? So this is how it started.
Yeah.
Or from an
that's true.
executive order.
Indeed.
As a decree.
Mhm.
So do you have
Sure.
any questions the group could answer for you?
At this time, I do not.
Well, we hope we've enticed you to come back and participate for be a regular member. Right. Does anyone have
I mean,
any? Go ahead.
if I may just say, I mean, it's crap. I mean, Rosario, you're the kind of person we're trying to target specifically, actually, because we've all gone through what you're going now, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here, and at different point in time. So we had slightly different experience, but we kind of all felt some of pain trying to figure out what's going on. And this is why we are very interested in this exercise of trying to map everything. And Matt deserves a lot of credit because he actually has been going further than anyone else has done before on that front. And we're still discovering stuff, which is amazing, right? It's like, wow, we're 2 years into this now, and we're still discovering bits and pieces that actually apparently belong to OpenSSF, but don't always, behave like they are, or it's not easy to figure it out. So,
Does anyone have any additional topics they'd like to talk about?
Nope.
All right, folks, thank you for your time and attention. Look for an email and Slack message from me about the vote so we can get officially ratified, so we can start taking action and starting to get some of these corrections that Matt's exercise helped identify for us.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.